Hey, it's Todd Rhoades with Chemistry Staffing here, and this is Tuesday, March 31st, and just wanted to do a kind of a daily update for church leaders. You know, this might be more for me than for anybody else, but um, I've got a lot of things going through my head, so just trying to process, as we all are, right, during this kind of coronavirus crisis or whatever you want to call it. So just wanted to kind of maybe try a daily update here as I have thoughts. I don't always have thoughts, but sometimes I do. Kind of get some of this stuff out of my head and actually get some feedback from all of you church leaders that are watching this. First thing I wanted to do was kind of tell you about two stories that hit yesterday that I think are on different ends of the spectrum that I think we need to be aware of. And just kind of process. Okay, I know I'm trying to process. The first is a megachurch pastor, Rodney Howard Brown, at the river in Tampa Bay. Yesterday was arrested for, I forget exactly what the charge was, but essentially it's a charismatic megachurch down in Tampa Bay. He kind of was outspoken and said that we're not going to, the God and the church is an essential service, and that we're going to disregard all the social distancing guidelines put down by the local officials there, and we're going to have church. And they asked him not to do it, and he defied the government authorities, so they went and arrested him yesterday. So that's the one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is another story that hit yesterday. I believe it's Calvary Church in Chicago, in Naperville, actually, where their pastor of Hispanic ministries, Pastor Angel Escamilla, died yesterday from the coronavirus. So these are two large churches that, and Calvary actually did not gather together. So it wasn't that this pastor contracted coronavirus, at least in the last couple of weeks, because they had met. That wasn't the case at all. But two different cases: one church that's decided one way, and then the reality of a church losing a pastor actually dying from the virus. And I would just say, man, we've got to really think through how our churches are going to handle this. Maybe not this week, because I think just about everybody is shut down. But as this crisis continues and things start, I don't think it's going to happen yet, but as things start to loosen up a little bit, how soon we gather and how much responsibility and care we're going to have for the people that are a part of our church and that will once again want to gather. These are my thoughts. This is not a time to be a hero. Okay. I get the whole church separation and from state and the government can't tell me what to do, and that God's an essential service. I get that. But at the same time, we really do need to listen to what our government officials are telling us. I think that's a biblical command as well, that we're supposed to listen. So just a couple of stories that kind of caught me yesterday at different ends of the spectrum and different kind of consequences for church leaders. So anyway, a lot of talk, another subject, a lot of talk on the government stimulus plan and the CARES Act. And I don't want to go into great detail here, but if you haven't heard about that, the government stimulus package could be a real benefit to your church during this time. Your church will probably qualify for a forgivable, they're calling it a forgivable loan, if you retain your staff. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have, in order for that loan to be forgivable, you need to make sure you have the same number of full-time equivalent staff at the end of this that you did at the beginning, and there's different dates and timelines and all that kind of thing. But anyway, this will be administered through the Small Business Administration, but my understanding is that it will actually be administered through your local bank, or most local banks. So it is not too early to do a Google search, do some research on that, and call your bank today and see exactly what that program is and how you might qualify for that. It's going to give you maybe up to 2 or 2.5 months worth of payroll that will be given to you as a forgivable loan that will allow you to keep your staff during these times of when we can't meet, right? So couple other things, kind of some pivots and some things that we're changing and trying here at Chemistry during this time. I mean, obviously, this is a time we're a staffing company, so we help churches find new staff. And during this time, obviously, there aren't a lot of churches. There are some, but there aren't a lot of churches right now. This has disrupted everything. That are saying, "Hey, Todd, we need to hire a brand new staff person." Actually, a lot of churches are trying to figure out how to keep their current staff members, and we want to help them do that. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But one of the things that we're finding that's a real need, I did a webinar on this last Thursday, and I can provide a link to that down below here as well. But so a couple weeks ago, we couldn't gather for our weekend services, right? And then last week, a lot of churches aren't even able to gather as a staff. They've had to close their offices. They can't even gather together in small groups of staff to kind of lead and collaborate and kind of figure this thing out. So what we're hearing from some church leaders is, man, it's kind of a double whammy, right? I've got all of my staff that now have to figure out how to minister in this new reality of all of our volunteers can't come, all of our people, all of our kids, all of our youth can't come on site. How do we minister to them online? But this is where we'd like to help if we can, is how do I lead my staff virtually, right? I can't even meet with my staff. How do I do that? And we want to try and help with that. So we're putting together what we're calling a remote leadership bootcamp. It's going to be 6 weeks. It's going to be online. It's going to be tuition optional, which means, man, if your church can pay for this, we've got a suggested price for it. We'd love to have you pay. But if you can't, we totally get it. We totally get it. So tuition optional, we're going to learn together how to lead your staff virtually. It's a skill set that a lot of us are learning. If you're not big on technology, it's one that you probably feel totally inadequate at. So we want to try and help you with that. If you're interested in being a part of that remote leadership bootcamp, it's going to start here within the next 2 weeks. You can go to chemistrystaffing.com/virtual bootcamp, all one word, virtual bootcamp. And then one other thing that's kind of on my mind and my heart now as I talk to a lot of church leaders, we don't know how long this crisis is going to go. We don't know how severe this crisis is going to go. We don't know how it's going to look in our churches when we're able to gather again. We don't know how our giving is going to be during this time. But a lot of pastors and church leaders and boards are really concerned. They're really starting to tighten their belts. And what this is going to mean, I think, in a lot of cases and churches, unfortunately, is there's going to have to be some cutback of staff. And here at Chemistry, we work with churches, but we also really take special interest in the candidates that go through our process and trying to care with them. You know, when you're changing a church job, or when you need to find a different church job, it's a stressful time anyway. So we try and help candidates kind of figure out what that next step is, and we want to try and help churches care for any staff that they may have to lay off during this time. So we're starting to offer some transitional coaching and some transitional services that churches can offer as a part of that severance package when and if you have to lay off employees. And here's what I'd love to do. I'd love to talk with anybody that's watching this, anybody that's kind of concerned. I know a lot of churches right now that I've talked to are like, we're not laying anybody off, but we're looking very carefully at contingency plans of what might need to happen. If you'd love just to have somebody to talk to through that plan, not a salesy call at all. I mean, I just would love to build into you and give any advice I can to you if you just need somebody to talk to. I'm going to provide a link down here that you can actually go to. It's going to be chemistrystaffing.com/transitions, chemistrystaffing.com/transitions. And on that page, you can find out a little bit more about what we're thinking as far as what this package might look like if your church needs that kind of a service in the future. And there's also a link there to where you can grab a half an hour with me just to kind of talk through kind of what you're thinking, what you need to process, really anything you need to talk about staffing, I'm more than happy to take some time in this week or next week to just kind of touch base and talk with you. So would love to hear, I'm going to give you my email address now. Hopefully the spammers aren't watching. If you're a spammer, go away. Todd, T-O-D-D Rhoades, R-H-O-A-D-E-S at chemistrystaffing.com, todd.rhoades at chemistrystaffing.com. Send me an email, leave a message here. Let me know where you're at, what you're thinking. Let me know some questions that you've got. Maybe if you've got a question, I can address it in a daily update like this. But man, I would love to build community, and maybe you're a staff member that's been laid off, and you just like to have somebody to kind of talk through it with. Love to talk with you as well. So todd.rhoades at chemistrystaffing.com. Thanks. Have a good day. Stay safe.